Welcome into the regular season kickoff of the Varsity 4 podcast. Justin Barney, Sponge Franklin coming to you week 1. We had week 0 last week. Had some regular season games for some smaller school teams. But of the high school football regular season kicks off in full this week. I'm excited, Sponge. We got a lot of ground to cover, and can you believe it's here?
Hey, it's finally here. We've been talking about it since media day. You know, we had the big media day down at the stadium, and we talked to a lot of the guys. Been banging out in practice for a couple weeks. We had some kickoff classics last week. Now we get to start it off, and games are for real. We're going to find out who's good, who's not, and let's get on for a long season. Let's do it.
It happens so quickly. You know, a lot of times we feel like summer's long. When I was a kid, summer felt so long.
Right.
And, man, as an adult now, it's just like fast forward. You got a kid, I got two kids.
It's a blur, dude.
It just flies by.
Yeah, you sit there and you think, okay, summer starts, June 1st or something. You're like, all right, we got a couple months. And then, like you say, literally you're like, man, we're 2 weeks away from August. And then, next thing you know, it's August 1st. Now we're like literally almost to September now. We got games. It does fly by.
It
does.
flies by. What'd you and the family do with little cruise this summer?
We took a couple trips down to Orlando. Went back and forth. He lives at the freaking pool, so he's a swimmer. So yeah, we just kind of took it easy this summer, but now it's ready to go full go with high school, college, and pro football. Let's get it going, man.
Yeah, it's Sponge's son when we had to do video or podcasts from away from the building. Crews would pop up here and there with a little scream from a room or come in and watch. So it's funny, funny to see. He's been
those remote days.
Yeah, he's been to quite a few high school football games in this time. But man, it is back. We are ready. We are rolling. We got our high school football Varsity 4 game of the week launching in week 1. We're going to be at Raines. Heads over to Bolles. Cole Pepper and myself will be on the call for that one. So that'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing that game. I've covered so many of those Raines Bolles games, and they're just fantastic. Before we get into the week's games, I'm going to unveil my Week 1 Super 10, Varsity 4 Super 10 rankings, and very similar to my preseason rankings.
Yeah.
And you and I probably have very similar rankings. So I've got 9 of the same teams in the Super 10 as I had in the preseason Super 10, just one exception. I've got Ponte Vedra moving in at number 10. I've got Creekside moving up from 10 to 9. And then my 1 through 8 are all the same. Baker County at 8, Bradford at 7, Riverside at 6, Bartram Trail at 5, Raines at 4, Bolles at 3, St. Augustine at 2, and Mandarin at 1. So no real big changes. Reason I got Trinity Christian out of there, they had a difficult performance against Hawthorne in their kickoff classic. Lost 35-0.
Yeah, no, I bumped him out too, just because, like you said, it's a kickoff classic. It doesn't count towards the record, but when you put what you put on tape is what we see, and when I watched that tape, it was not good. So I don't care who you're playing. Hawthorne definitely, like we said, is one of those better, lower tiered rural type teams, but Cornelius Ingram's built a little bit of a program down there.
Yes,
they've been in the Final Fours. They've made some big runs in the playoffs the last several years. They're a good team, but no way, shape, or form should Trinity be in games where they're getting smoked like that. Yeah. And like I say, just the youth is showing up big time. And it's going to be a long year to get those young guys. They're just going to have to take their lumps, and this could be a team for the future type deal. But they're going to have in my opinion, they're going to have some problems against some of these bigger power teams like the Bolles and the Raines and the Riversides when they play those guys on the schedule. But the good part is those are not your playoff type teams that you're going to see in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So get yourself situated, take your lumps, win the games you need to win, and then, get in the playoffs and, see where you can make a run possibly to get deep in the playoffs. But as far as local, top team, yeah, Trinity's definitely down compared to where they've been the last several years.
Yeah, and I think
it's all due to youth. It's young, man.
And I think a lot of teams would take Trinity's spot being down a few years because the success that Verlin and the Trinity guys have had has just been almost unmatched locally. I mean, only UC and Bolles have – UC has 9 titles, same as Trinity. Bolles has 11 championships. So, I mean, you're talking one of the 3 best programs in area history, what Verlin and Trinity have done over there. So you're going to have those down times.
They're just super young, and they're super talented, but it's going to come with experience and just getting the reps. They got to coach them up and just get them going. But like I say, the future looks bright, but as far as right now, it's going to be
tough. And Bolles went through that last year. Yeah. You started 0-3, and Bolles always it conjures up this Bolles is Bolles and they're elite. And Bolles was down last year, big time down. They were 5-5 in the regular season, lost some.
Yeah, that's not a typical.
Not a typical Bolles team.
Yeah.
So they're 5-5 in the regular season. But those young guys, which Trinity has this year, I look at Bolles last year and Trinity this year very, very closely together because Bolles didn't have a Bolles standards team on paper last year. They were 5-5, started with a 3-game losing streak, really struggled, and they turned it around. They ended up getting back to the state semifinals. They've been to the state semifinals every year under Matt Toblin. So they took their lumps early against great teams. I mean, at St. Augustine, Coffee, and Mandarin. I mean, all the 3 of those teams were championship teams, championship game teams. So you take your lumps, you build for the future. Although in today's era of football, what type of future are you building for? You may not have the guys you are actually taking those lumps with the transfer portal in high school football. But I do think Trinity will be in a good.
The difference I would say with that is Bolles at least had a quarterback who had some experience. When you start a 9th grader, that's tough. When you're starting a 9th grade quarterback with no experience at the varsity level, I mean, you got to be like Colin or one of these, Trammell's, of the worlds that, Lachlan, where they're just ready to go at that young of an age. But it's still such a tough position to play for high school where at least they had DJ and Ethan on that team where they took their lumps with their other skill guys were young to at least carry them on to that late stretch run that they got on to where they got in the playoffs. But this year we're going to find out how good these young – like I love Terrell. He's Derek Smith's younger brother who played safety for us when we were over there. And he, like I say, he's a dynamic player, but he just doesn't have the experience.
Right.
So,
and, you mentioned the guys like Trammell and Lachlan and Colin. Those guys are they don't grow on trees.
Exactly.
Exactly. Colin has really progressed quickly. I mean, he got reps as an 8th grader on a Trinity state champion team, won a state championship as a 9th grader. Those guys are just cut from a different cloth. You do not have the Lachlans, whose dad is a QB trainer.
Right, exactly.
Trammell, who's been starting since 9th grade, who was a known entity before he got to high school. So those guys who were able to produce as freshmen, very few and far between. I mean, truly produce as freshmen, like carry the teams to state playoffs as freshmen. That's what we're talking about, not just survive, because a lot of the freshmen, if they do play as quarterbacks, you're basically just surviving. So I think Trinity will get there. Their history, their pedigree, that coaching staff's been together forever. I think they will get there, and I do think they'll still be a factor come playoff time. But to me, week 1 of the season, they're not one of the 10 best teams, and that's no slight to them. I just think it's youth and an experience. Any disagreements with you from Super 10? Do you have
no,
similar?
It was, like I say, it's basically the same from last week. I still have, obviously the top 3 are the same. Where I have it a little bit different than you is that 4, 5, 6. We have the same teams, they're just kind of mixed around with Raines, Riverside, and Bartram. You know, you can go either way with the 3 of those teams. We'll let it play out and see where chips fall this week, and then I still got Bradford right there.
Who's your 4, 5, 6 teams?
Basically, I had Riverside there last week, but if you go by they played a game. Yes, it was a kickoff classic. Bartram beat them technically. So I bumped Bartram to 4. Then I've got Riverside at 5, Raines at 6.
Okay.
So because I'm going based off of projection style. So if I think Bolles is going to beat Raines this week, then that means Raines would be 0-1 next week.
Right.
Or whatever. So that's where I have Raines set up. Spoiler alert, obviously, I might be picking Bolles in that win. But no, then I've got Bradford, Baker, or Creekside Baker, and then I've got Ponte Vedra rounding out the back of the top 10 as well.
Yeah, I think Creekside is going to be good.
I think Creekside is going to be good. Obviously, they got a tough game week 1 too. But.
Yeah, they've never lost to Mandarin though, and the thing we'll talk about in a minute. But Mandarin Seniors has never beaten Creekside.
Not so fast, my friend.
They've not beaten Creekside, so will be interesting to see. I know that when we talked to them at the high school football media day, Trammell, Jamie, and Drake said that game is very personal to them because they've not ever beaten Creekside.
Yeah.
And that series has kind of been – Mandarin's won a lot early on in that series, but Creekside has really – Sean McIntyre, give that coaching staff credit for what they do and able to produce that offense consistently. And I was at that Creekside Mandarin game last year, a phenomenal game. I don't think Creekside should have won the game, but they ended up Harrison Garrido and Sean Ashtonfeld. They're really good offensive guys. Like Caleb Taylor-Burch coming back. So I think that week 1 game is going to be very, very good. So going into our week 1 games, we'll do like we did last year and look at 4 games apiece that are kind of our top 4 games. So, Sponge, you want me to start? Or
go for it. You go for it.
All right. I don't think the top game is really any question this week, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Bradford at Baker County. I like that game.
That's a banger.
Bradford and Jamie Rogers have beaten Baker County 4 times in a row, including 2 in the last playoffs. That game at Baker County, place where Jamie Rogers is from, still lives. Coached them to a state championship runner-up game several years ago, and now he's he loves Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Bradford guy through and through, but he's Baker County at heart. So I think that's such a good storyline, and Baker County with Kevin Mays he's done a remarkable job coming in there and getting that program just consistently rolling. 2 of the better coaches in our area. Yeah. Kevin's worst year was 2019, his first one, and they still went 6-5. He's never missed the playoffs. State semifinalist a few years ago, 3 years ago. So I like that game.
Yeah,
I like that game.
That game's always, you think about, it's just like 2 country towns, like small town. That we always talk about the rural atmosphere at both of those places. Whenever you play in Stark or if you play in Baker, it's going to get a good crowd. You're going to have just a good, it's like one of those defensive slugfests. You're going to get a banger. So that game's always big on the schedule, and especially they've been kind of a little bit of a rival, but it's been a little one-sided.
Right.
Bradford's just had the better players. They've had a little bit more depth at the skill guys, and they've just done a little bit better. And then that defense has just been
ferocious.
Phenomenal.
I'm looking forward to seeing Bradford because they lost a lot.
They lost a ton.
They lost a lot of talent. Torrin Brazel, Jason Clark. They picked up a transfer quarterback from Columbia, Zach Polk, so their offense could be a little bit better than last year. I think that was the knock, if anything, on Bradford last year was the defense was so good and the offense still had a little bit of spurts where it struggled. So I think that's a great game. Ponte Vedra at Nice, I think that's a good one. That was been our game of the week for the last 2 years. Yeah. Nice little St. Johns County clash. Ponte Vedra has just dominated in that rivalry. Nice beat them last year to win the district championship and kind of threw that Region 1-4S playoff race into a little bit of chaos late in the season. But Colin Drafts has got a good team coming back. Maddox Spencer, very good receiver, one of the best in the area. Last season, he was an all News for Jack selection. And Ponte Vedra, C. Price has done really well over there in building something. I think they're texting with the coach yesterday about Ponte Vedra and what he saw, and they have got a really, really strong defensive front, stronger than what we saw last year from them on tape. And I think they have Talon Babin, some really good defensive guys. They're sneaky good, Ponte Vedra, that type of team. They're sneaky good. They're not these – you're not going to have a 2,000-yard running back. You're not going to have a 2,000-yard receiver or anything like that, but they're just good, consistently good. So I like that game. Riverside Oakleaf is another good one. I think 2 teams who really need to get out on fast starts. Oakleaf was 3-7 last year. You really got – or 3-6 last year. You really got to get – out on a strong foot, and Christopher Foy's second year there. Nice. They got Caleb Singleton now, the old the Fleming Island transfer over there. So that should add an element to that team. So I like that one. Riverside lost to Bartram Trail last week in the Kickoff Classic, but Antoine Nicholas has done such a good job at getting that program, keeping it consistently in check as one of the better teams in the area. Has really kind of what O.J. Small left, he is built on, and you've seen that with them. They've got – I love Miles Kendrick.
We talked about
touched on him a couple weeks ago. Tayshawn Gelsey's a Florida commit. Glenn Foreman, the third, a strong quarterback. When you can bring back your top – I'm going to call Tayshawn Gelsey receiver.
Right.
8 touchdown catches last year. Yeah. Your top receiver, your top quarterback, and then your top multi-purpose guy. Right. Some teams would kill to have that returning, and Riverside has that. So I don't put a lot of stock into that. Bartram loss. Those teams are anytime those teams have played has been a barn burner.
When you're in that Kickoff Classic game, again, we don't know the particulars if we weren't out there to see how long the starters were in, who was in, did Bartram keep starters in longer, all that type of stuff. But I know that it was obviously a banger of a game because it was close. You don't know when the backups got in if some scoring happened and it was like, okay, well, Riverside was in control, and then regardless, Kickoff Classic games are Kickoff Classic games. I do like the Riverside team, and I do like what I like what Foy's got going on out there in Oakleaf, but if you're at Riverside, this is kind of like one of those, in a sense, statement. Let's come out and let's really put a stamp on the season. And you're playing a good, formidable opponent, so, like, let's get a nice win. And, hopefully all those three guys we just talked about, those are going to be the difference. You got three big-time playmakers that is going to get you that win to get you to say, hey, let's get rolling 1-0. Let's get going on to the season. So I look for Riverside to come out and try to make a little bit of a statement and try to, put something on Oakleaf. So it'll be, on the flip side, what does Oakleaf do to counter some of those big-time guys that, are the playmakers that are circled, where we got to stop these guys.
Yep.
And so it should be a good matchup, though.
I like that one. And then I think the number one for both of us, and we got a little variation in our top 4 games. The number one, I think, for both of us is Raines and Bolles.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent game out of the gate. Bolles has ended Raines' season last year many times in the playoffs.
Yep.
And it is just such a clash of excellence, tradition. Raines has probably got its most talented team on paper since Duran Wiley's championship teams, his back-to-back championship teams, 2017 and 18. Raines is loaded.
Yeah.
Raines is loaded. They have so many guys on there. TJ Cole, quarterback, came over from Rebault.
Yeah.
Solomon Thomas, obviously, is there. Another massive guy on the other side, Giant Simon on that defensive side of the ball.
I love that kid.
Me
man.
too.
I mean, you literally, I'm literally sitting there thinking, when I was thinking about this game, that's like one of the, I know Bolles and their staff's got to be like, how are we going to block this guy? And, I can't wait to watch what they're going to try to do to combat him, or is he just going to go slap off and be unblockable?
Yeah. Reminds me of Garrison Butler on Bolles last year, that big defensive tackle who was just
He's
a
nasty, dude.
high motor, physical, big guy. They don't, as much of a misconception it is when you see these kids, these 4- and 5-star kids coming out of high school and going to college that are 6'3", 290. Those guys do not grow on trees. I mean, guys like Giant Simon are exceptionally rare in this area at the high school football level because they're big-bodied kids, they're physical, they're strong, weightlifter kind of kids who put it together on the field. And I look at a Garrison Butler last year at Bolles, defensive lineman who I believe ended up going to Louisville. He was just such a force on that line. You had to scheme on him. You had to put 2 guys on him to stop him. And I think Giant is that kind of guy, and he's got help too. So I think with Donovan Maslin and this team, this is by far Donovan's most talented team. But how a lot of these guys that got in the portal, a lot of these guys transferred over. Tony Williams from White. You got a lot of guys who do that, who come over and join a program. So my only question about that, and you've seen this at Trinity before, when you have a lot of guys who haven't been playing together for many, many years together. Some schools where you've got the St. Augustines, those types, have been playing together for a little bit of time. And a lot of the Raines kids have too. A lot of Maynard kids have too. But you add such an influx of new faces, projected guys who are going to be starting. How do those pieces all fit together? And you see that at every level. You see that the U.S. Olympic basketball team. It takes, even you've got this collection of guys, you've got to have this team play together and get that familiarity with each other. And it's very similar in high school.
Oh, definitely.
So how do you, and Trinity was a good case of that too, where you had all this talent, but then you would get beat by teams that you should have never gotten beaten by. But it takes that talent and those kids some time to come together, especially on the high school level. And that's why I've thought when I look back to IMG coming here and playing Trinity a few years ago. IMG is the only local team that's beaten IMG has been Trinity.
Yeah.
And it's because those Trinity guys had been together for a little bit of time. Sean Wade's and those guys.
We had a pretty good group that was been playing for a while. And plus, we got them on the very first year.
Right.
They were still fully loaded, and they had some dudes. Now they've definitely even gotten more guys. But, I mean, that team was loaded when we played them. And then we got them two other times we went down there, and they beat the brakes off of us that night. And then we had a banger of a game the Kellen Mond year when Kellen Mond was the quarterback. That was when we still had DJ Wade and all those guys. But they had, I think Nolan Smith was on that D line, dude. He was at Georgia. He went to Georgia, and it was everybody's first round. I remember seeing him. We talk about Zion. Dude, Nolan Smith in high school. It was how are we going to block this guy?
Right.
And then they had guys in the secondary. They had receivers all over. It's just But again, you still have to get that all-star
Right.
team who's like, I've never played, catch, run routes with this quarterback, but for only a couple weeks or a couple months, and you're like, trying to learn the offense and like, learn what the calls are, learn what, you're basically trying to figure out what the coach even wants, you to do. And so that is a whole learning process, especially when you get new faces in such a short time, to kind of build that camaraderie, just to understand the what you want, what's the buy-in. And so sometimes that does take a lot of times, but it's a whole heck of a lot easier when you got dudes like that.
Yeah, it is.
Than,
I
not having dudes.
The question to me is, how good will Raines and Mandarin be right out of the gate,
right,
with a lot of new faces? And Mandarin's a little bit different.
Mandarin's pretty. They've got their core.
A lot of those guys have been together for a little bit of time. They do have transfers, but I think they're more systemically better in place because a lot of those guys have been there. And same Raines too. They just have a lot of new faces. So that's my only question with Raines is how good will those guys be with basically just playing 3 or 4 quarters of a preseason classic against Kip Bold City or somebody,
a middle school team.
Yeah. So how good will those guys be? And I mean, Maslin and the guys do an excellent job of coaching over there, so they will be ready for bowls. But I do think that remains to be said that you have so many unknowns, how these guys are going to react and respond to each other alongside each other in games. I think that's a fair question. But Raines and Bolles, and I think Bolles, last year took the lumps, talked on that early. I think, and Bolles beat Raines in the playoffs last year, 14-7.
Yeah.
I've seen so many of these games, and Corky Rogers, I remember talking to him about this story on this rivalry, this Bolles-Raines rivalry, and he was in his career, which started back as an assistant at Ribault back in 1970 or 71. He was 15-12-1 against Raines teams. That's when he was at Lee. That's when he was at Bolles. And so many of those, and Corky said, and Duran Wiley said on the opposite side, that coaching against a Bolles or Raines made you a better coach, made you have to look and say, what do I have to do to beat them? And for Duran in particular, going against Corky was like a chess match.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Wiley after games, those Bolles-Raines, just epics back and forth games, and like a 24-23 game, which was just a crazy game, and talking to Duran after, and it was like somebody stole his soul. He was that broken after that loss because I thought we did what we needed to do to beat Bolles, but that just made it so much more gratifying when he finally did that. And Corky on the reverse side said, coaching against Raines when I was at Lee, I had to figure out how to beat these guys because they had so many good pieces in place, and it was such a matchup. And then going from Lee to Bolles, Raines ended Bolles' state record 91-game district winning streak. That's a record that won't be even close to being touched again. And I think it was a 26-21 game. Raines beat them back in 2011. Bolles wound up righting the ship, beating Raines in that season again in the playoffs, and won the state championship that year. But man, beating one of those teams beating the other, you learn so much. And I think with Matt Toblin and his staff at Bolles this year, they know they've got their hands full. Yeah. And Raines too, because Maslin was a coordinator and assistant on so many of those Raines teams that lost to Bolles and eventually toppled Bolles and beat Bolles. But new coaches with Donovan Maslin and Matt Toblin, used to be the Corky and Duran battles, which were just unbelievable. Live in local high school football lore. So I am looking forward to seeing that one. Bolles is loaded. I think took its lumps last year growing up, and then I think Raines is absolutely loaded this year. I think state championship should be on the lips of both of these teams.
Yeah, no, we talked about it last week. Who were the teams that could be our state championship contenders? Who could make a run? Who could actually get there? Who could actually win one? And obviously the top 4 teams, we know the Mandarin and the St. Augustine, but Bolles and Raines are definitely right there on. Both of these teams can get into that state championship game. Both of them could, make a run to win it. So I'm intrigued by the matchup. I love the skill guys that Bolles has. Obviously we talk about Naeem and just how legit of a smooth receiver he is. They've got a couple other guys too. Ennis over there. Collier's over there. And they got the tight end Fordham's over there. They're always going to have a good offense and defensive line too. So they're just well coached. You know, you go back to Toblin when he was at Ponte Vedra. That was one of the staples of when Ponte Vedra kind of came out of nowhere. It was like, why is this Ponte Vedra team so good? It was not only, like you said before, about having a group that played together for so long. You know, they kind of just bought into that system that he put together. And so when Ponte Vedra kind of, like I say, came out on the scene, it was just like, why is the team so good? Well, they're well coached, and their system and style of play works.
Yep.
So what you know, it was a perfect fit for him to come over to Bolles. And it took a little while to get everything in place, but I mean, look at the consistency of what they do every year. They make it to the Final Four. They make a bigger run. They take their lumps with a young team. And what does that have to say? It's got to go back to your coaching personnel. You know, like, what are you doing to get these kids to buy into what you're doing?
Right.
And obviously they're doing that well. And so, you know, the coaching staff and Toblin have done a great job over there to, you know, continue that Bolles legacy of, like, one of the top teams in the city, one of the top teams in the state. And again, that's just why, you know, they're just continuously good. And so I love both of these teams, obviously, you know, because Raines, they're the same way. They're always the best team on the north side. They're always one of the best public schools. They got the best skill guys. They got the best dudes, and they continuously just pump out 8, 9, 10 win seasons, make playoff runs. And both of them, you know, were in the heyday when they were in the same district, when they were battling each other, knocking each other off, but they were both winning state titles. You know, that it takes you back to where you're like, that's just great football in our city. It's just those two teams, you know, go all the way back to when, you know, that coffee team, you know, with Lido and Jabbar and all those guys, you know, that was a special team.
Yeah.
And so Raines is just they carry that mantle that I know a lot of other people in the city don't want to hear, you know, that Raines, you know, is probably one of the, you know, the Riversides, the Reeboks back in the day, the Jacksons, the First Coast. You know, Raines has kind of held that mantelpiece that, you know, we're the best team, public school wise, in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
so,
and tradition wise, I don't even think it's close. Yeah, I know. Bolles has got the 11 state championships, but in terms of public schools in our coverage region, it's not even close.
Yeah.
And Manders won a title, St. Aug has won a championship, but you cannot touch Raines and argue with what they have done.
Especially when you go back to, like, you know, you talk about the guys who played in the NFL for those guys, you know, from way back in the day, you know. So Raines definitely, it's a well-known national brand, you know, not even just in our local coverage area, but they're statewide. Everybody knows who Raines, the Vikings, baby, you know. So, you know, Raines Nation, like, and then you throw in one of the best, you know, private schools, Bolles-Raines. It doesn't get any better, man.
It's unreal. I mean,
it doesn't get any better.
The clash of styles. There's the, you know, the elite private school against the inner city public school. That's been a narrative for many years. But I told Donovan Maslin, Raines is now a B school and I'll bang that drum forever because the narrative, I know when I asked Donovan about this at Media Day, he said there's a narrative that there's violence and we can't get out of our own way on a lot of this stuff. So this really goes to show this overall school grade, that we're doing great work on the classroom and in the field. So great for Raines for accomplishing that, because that's program-wide at that school. But it's just such the collision of styles, and it's
I will say too now, you know, what was great was, you know, Wiley and V-Man, they had a great relationship, and they would always talk to each other. And, you know, we had a nice run against Raines. I don't think Raines has beat us in the last, I don't know, since the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be the year to get them. You got V-Man on a young squad, so that Raines Trinity game, they might go Raines' way for once, because there's been some battles back and forth in that game. You know, I think the one 2 years ago was like one of those ones where Raines probably had the better team. That was when we had Cam Miller at Penn State. He had a big-time punt return early in that game, and it, you know, set it up for, you know, Darnell had a rock-solid game on the ground. But, you know, that was – Trinity's kind of had their way with Raines, you know, head-to-head wise.
Right.
You know, they weren't in the playoffs together, but they had some clashes some bangers of regular season games.
Right.
Always a great game.
Oh, man, such a good game.
Yeah, Raines Trinity, Bolles Trinity, and, Raines Bowl. Like, those three, when they mix it up, like, it's the two best private schools with, the best inner city school is always.
Yeah, it's going to be a good matchup. And shameless plug, we'll be streaming that game. Really excited about our streaming games this year. Our Varsity 4 Game of the Week, Raines and Bolles. We go through the list before the season starts and try and pick out our best games and spread them out. So Raines and Bolles Week 1. There's some great games, great candidates other than that one, but man, Raines Bolles, you cannot argue against that one. We will talk about or stream that live on newsforjacks.com on Friday. Culpepper and I will be on the call for that one, so that'll be good to see that one. So I know you had your 4 games, and I think we'll probably overlap on some.
We overlapped. The only other 2 I'd mention would be, we talked about it earlier, the Creekside Mandarin game, just because it's one of that stamp games, like we said. Jamie and those guys, they want to beat Creekside. Right. They haven't beaten them. They want to come out and make a statement. They're considered the best team in the area, so let's go out and beat this team that's kind of giving us problems. Upset last year where you're just like, how the heck did Creekside win that game? They did, but, so I think you could get a number put on you if you're Creekside. But Creekside's got a little bit of, they got some guys. They got a little bit of firepower over there with the returning quarterback, Ashenfelder, and the running back, and Little Birch. But I just feel like Mandarin's too much. And
I think Mandarin is going to be really focused for this game.
I agree.
And
that's what I'm saying. Week 1, they're hyper-focused.
And the fact that you're getting Creekside right out of the gate, it's a team you've never beaten.
Yeah.
I say never beaten. The senior class has never beaten, especially that loss last year that handed Mandarin their first loss of the season. They're going to be hyper-motivated for that game, so I think that is going to be a big one. And what was your last one?
I want to see how Trinity rebounds.
Yeah.
You're playing an Ed White team. Both teams starting young quarterbacks. A quarterback from Ed White was a kid who was at Trinity. It's Kyle's little brother, King Bolston. So how good – like, what did you learn from getting beat at Hawthorne to where, you can just take that week 1 to week 2 mentality of, like, what did we learn? What did we put on tape? What do we do to get better? And, like, kind of a gut check game to see – how good Ed White, is going to be, because I know they lost a lot of guys. They had, Tony Williams, who probably was their best kind of all around. He was their best linebacker, best defensive player. Also ran the ball for them.
Right.
Their quarterback graduated, so like I say, they're starting a young guy. What is Ed White look like? Because Ed White's kind of been. I know they obviously have my boy Josh Patterson out there at corner. He's one of the best corners in the city. But what do they look like? And how does this West Side rivalry, go down? So I just, like I say, Trinity's they got some games down the line, obviously, with Bolles and Raines and Riverside in the next couple weeks after that. So you don't want to start out like 1-4, 0-4 out the gate, lose some confidence and all that. So
it's going to be a good one. And another one I like, Fleming Island and Clay. It's going to be
that's always the Clay County game. That's always one of the top Clay County games.
And interesting, no Chad Parker.
Exactly.
Who got, unceremoniously moved on from at Fleming Island for some transgressions, but he is no longer the coach. Derek Cipoletti is now in charge at Fleming. They had a big showing last week in their kickoff classic game. Cipoletti is one of the best coaches.
That's my guy. Like I said, that was when I went to Forest. That was the year, my senior year, was when Rob Jennis got fired in the middle of the season. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that?
Is it the band parent?
Yes. So that was my senior year. Yeah, so we were playing Mandarin, and it was homecoming. And basically the backstory is the band didn't play at halftime because we had all the ceremonies going on. So they were playing after the game. We lost a heartbreaker. They called a holding call on a punt return. We had to return back for a touchdown. End up losing, a heartbreaker. So we're huddled up on the field, and the Mandarin band parent's like, "Hey, get off the field," Hey, get off the field. And then finally, Coach Dennis just runs over, hauls off, and just knocks the guy slap out, gets arrested.
Yeah.
So
front page of the paper the next morning.
Big Cipoletti was our defensive coordinator, so he took over as interim. And Lil Chip, he was like one of my like mentors. Like he was young, he was older, obviously a little bit older than me. And so we've always been really good friends. We've stayed in touch. When he was at Oakleaf, when he was at Fleming the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm super stoked for him to be back out there again.
He interim coach at Fleming, and really good coach, great player too in high school at Orange Park, Super 11 linebacker, I believe, went to UCF, and but has really kind of cut his teeth in the coaching ranks. Has done well, like at Bradford, but his greatest success was at Oakleaf. I think he had a 12-1 season, run to the regional finals one year. It was just an amazing season. Had a Hail Mary win over Atlantic Coast, just all kinds of stuff. And then he's missed the playoffs at 8-2 as well. So he's had a little bit of that misfortune as well. But left coaching full time, went to the private sector, and he was defensive coordinator at Fleming, and now he's the head coach. So that'll be an interesting one. I think he's one of the best coaches not coaching currently, alongside like a Joey Wiles. But I think Chip is going to fill that role nicely there at Clay in week 1. Always a great rivalry. Mm-hmm. And before we sign off, I want to look at 4 of our dream matchups, I guess you could say. 4 matchups that are not currently on the schedule that I would love to see. And, gateway teams only have to schedule a certain amount of gateway games, so maybe why you don't see some of these great gateway matchups. But for me, I think the number 1 is Raines Mandarin.
Yeah,
I think that's the one I would like to see.
There's a lot of social media chatter right now with that game, like who would win, why didn't that game get put on the schedule, that type of deal. But yeah, this would be the year where you would definitely want that matchup that you're not going to get. Luckily, we're going to get that St. Augustine Mandarin matchup. But again, we talked about it before. I hate that it's the last week of the season.
Yeah, same. Because
it's just like you don't know where the teams are going to be at that point. You're kind of getting ready for playoffs. So the whole we got to win this one is not going to be there like it would be if it was this week or next week or middle of the season, where you got that middle of the season, oh, man, we got this big game. So definitely I'm glad it's on the schedule, but having, Raines Mandarin this year would have definitely been
number
something. 1 on the list.
Number 1, Gateway Conference title game, eliminator. So that one for me. Raines Mandarin would be my number 1. Bolles Mandarin would be number 2.
Yeah.
These teams have played
last
year.
Definitely be.
Mandarin with a big win over that one. That one's not on the schedule this year. Mandarin's going down to IMG to play IMG, so maybe that took the place of it. St. Augustine Bradford, that's my number 3 game I'd love to see.
No,
that's collision of the defense that you want to see and the offense that you want to see. That would be my other one. They played many times in the past. And then Fletcher, Ponte Vedra, Battle of the Beach game. This one should be happening every year, and it just doesn't for some reason.
Yeah, those are the 4 that I would choose. And like I say, those are just classic matchups, like the whole, Ponte Vedra. Like that's just St. Johns County classic that you like to see those games.
You got an upset pick this week?
I don't, not really. I think all the top teams win. I was going to ask you what you thought. Who you're going to pick on the game of the week, man?
My predictions come out Thursday, but I'm feeling a little bit Bolles is going to win.
Yeah,
Raines, and I know it's a different Raines team. These teams played last year in the playoffs, and Bolles won. And that was probably Bolles' worst team under Toblin. And in terms of 5-5 and lost games they shouldn't have lost. So you can't beat them then.
Yeah.
Bolles is a year better coached now, a year older, a year with more coaching into those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Those players are developed. They've got new kids coming in. I think that Bolles wins that game in a close dogfight kind of game. 14-7 last year in the playoffs.
I think it'll be a little more points scored than that. But, yeah, I'm with you. I have a feeling, like we talked about, I love Raines, and I love, what are they going to do to block, the big cat on defense? What are they going to do, to be able to get Cole going, at quarterback? But I just feel like Ethan Drum, those receivers are going to be the difference in the game. I think they're going to be able to score enough to get up, to obviously win. But I feel like it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a banger. But I just think that the coaching with what Toblin's instilled and having that veteran quarterback who's kind of been there for a while and then those playmakers, I think that's the difference in the game.
All right. My upset pick this week is Zarephath Academy over Episcopal.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going Zarephath over Episcopal for my my pick 'em, my upset of the
Okay.
week. So if you're throwing any money down on the game, so hey, not too long before we probably get high school.
I know, right? Let's
high
get some
school,
lines on this. Let's get some lines.
high school betting.
We need to set the lines.
Yeah, we need to set the line. So each week when I do picks, I'll text coaches, and I've texted Verlin before, and I would say, hey, this Christchurch is a 17-point favorite over you, and he'd laugh. But I always send coaches kind
Well,
of.
that was, well, the big thing with that is what used to be our motivational thing is the Pinkos picks.
Oh yeah.
So you go on there, it'll be on the website. It'll pop up like on Wednesday or Thursday, and it'll give you the rundown of all of the games. It'll just say like Trinity, 30 over Ed White. It'll just like this week it'll be like Bolles 14 over Raines. You'll be like, what?
Yeah.
So you'll get a couple that are like, okay, this is on par. This should be about right. So it's all computer generated. It's not like literally odds. Like the odds makers in Vegas. But you'd always use that like, man, we're 14-point underdogs in this game. Like we're gonna lose by 14 of these guys. So yeah.
So I always get a kick out of doing predictions. Although I've been doing predictions for quite some time. In my 5 years here of doing predictions, I'm almost 70.
No, you're
79%.
You do well. You do well because again, there's no spread, so it's just pick the winners, and like I said, you nail it pretty much.
Yeah, we'll see. So my upset pick, I'll do upset pick of the week each week. So
I'll have to get in on this one next week because I didn't really look at I don't really have, like I say, I didn't look at the full slate besides the 10 or 15 top games, but I feel like the chalk, I feel like the favored teams or the teams that are in the better situation, it'd be like if I was going to say Oakleaf was going to knock off Riverside, which, I don't think is going to happen, but, I'll have to look. We'll have to do a upset special.
yeah, I think maybe we'll end our podcast each week with one upset pick apiece. So right. I know people take these very personally. But that's it for our week 1 edition of the Varsity 4 podcast. We'll come back to you next week and kind of break down our same thing, our new Super 10s, and kind of what we're looking ahead to the next week. For Sponge Franklin, Justin Barney, we'll catch you next week on the Varsity 4 podcast.